right, everybody. Welcome to the FCA Locker Room, the show where we explore how faith and sports come together to transform lives on and off the field. I'm one of your hosts, Vincenzo Pepe. And if you listen to our last episode, we had Steve Heinz on, our regional director for talent advancement. And we covered all things talent advancement. What does that mean? How do we recruit people? How do we train staff? What is the need for staff? The different areas that staff can serve, right? And so we really wanted to give you like a big picture of what it looks like to kind of come on staff with FCA and what that actually means. Just so many people, just in my honestly weekly life, I feel like I come across so many people that say, "Oh, like you work for that ministry? Like you can, that, like they have jobs there," and it's so funny, right? Because like somebody who's in the ministry, like of course there is, right? Like how would the ministry be happening if we didn't have staff? But for a lot of people, they're so unaware that that's even the case sometimes, and quite honestly, they're even less aware that we're looking for more staff and more volunteers and more people to be involved with the ministry. And so I want to take some time and really dive into that a little bit more today. What does that really look like? Why is there such a need for workers, right? For staff in FCA, specifically in the Northeast, right? Is the area that we're in here, but honestly, nationwide and even globally, right? And those different things. And what ministry looks like and the type of people perhaps that we're looking for and maybe just answer some of those questions that you've had. We've had some really good feedback from last episode, some people a little bit more interested, some people just having more questions about what it all looks like. So hopefully today we kind of break some of those down and give you guys a clearer picture of what sports ministry is, how it operates, and how you can be part of it. I know a lot of these episodes that we do are typically finding a sport environment and we're talking to coaches or athletes or sometimes FCA staff about what it looks like to use that area as a ministry, right? And how to do sports ministry and how to do discipleship through there. Um, but all of those areas that we cover, right, and that we've talked about, and some of the guests that you've heard on, they're all involved with FCA in some way. So some of them are coaches and athletes that are involved with our huddles or programs. Some of them have been staff, right? But all of those environments don't really happen unless we have the people to do it. There's a verse that we use all the time for this. It's a very well-known verse, right, from Matthew 9:37 and 38. It says, "Then he said to his disciples, 'The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Ask the Lord of the harvest, therefore, to send out workers into his harvest field.'" And this is just showing, right? There's so many people, right? The fields are ready for harvest, meaning the people, right, in our neighborhoods, in our communities, they're ready to hear the gospel, but there's so few workers, there's so few people that are doing ministry to do that. And I want to make it clear that with FCA, yes, this is an occupational ministry. I work for FCA, so I get to do ministry as part of my job. But the FCA ministry would not exist if we didn't have people living their everyday life as ministry, right? So our coaches who are not on staff with FCA but are in the school system that are with our club teams every single day, they are doing ministry in their fields, right? Just like teachers, you can use your platform as ministry. Business owners use your platforms as ministry. But we're going to obviously hone in on the occupational piece of ministry and the calling to what that might look like. But again, today's focus is going to be more on casting vision for what we need, for what the need is, and the urgency of maybe how you can get involved. But that verse there, Matthew 9, 37 through 38, probably the anchor verse for talent advancement and for staffing across FCA. I know so many of us on staff have an alarm set for every day at 9:37, and it goes off and we just take a minute to just pray for those future workers, for our current workers, right? But most importantly, for the workers to be, the people that will come alongside and be on staff and serve alongside us in a team and grow our team to then grow the ministry and grow the kingdom of God here on earth. So let's just lay out the reality of why the harvest is plentiful, right? So again, we're just going to be talking about just here in the Northeast, and then I'll break it down a little bit more. But in the Northeast alone, we have roughly 34 million people in our Northeast region of New York and New England that this region of FCA covers. In New York, we have almost 20 million people in the entire state, including the city and all of upstate New York. And then in the area that I cover, Hudson Valley, we have roughly 2.3 million people. And those are the counties between like Rockland and Westchester, all the way up towards the Albany area. And so there's no way that we can reach all those people. And even if you break it down into how many coaches and athletes there are, that's still millions, right? Tens of millions of people across the state and across the Northeast. And so the opportunity is massive, right? But we're short on workers in a sense because just in my own county alone, right? I could never cover all the coaches and athletes, all the schools, all the clubs, all the leagues, all those different opportunities. We can never cover those just by one person doing it. And there's so many communities and areas in the Hudson Valley and in the state and in the region, and honestly, probably even nationally and globally, that are unreached, right? That have not been able to. There's no FCA presence. There's no maybe not even a gospel presence in those sports. And so the urgency of reaching youth where they're at, right? The gyms, the fields, the courts, the pools, the rinks, whatever it might be, like there's an urgency for that because we know that sports is a platform. We know that sports is highly regarded, right, as one of the most important things in people's lives in our society, in our American culture. Honestly, probably, internationally as well. And so people are going to the fields on the weekend, right? I mean, I know I used to coach baseball, and every weekend we'd be on a different field somewhere, right? And oftentimes having to miss church, and a lot of people don't go to church because they're choosing sports instead, or and in a couple of months once football season starts, people are going to be on their couch watching NFL from noon to 10, 11 o'clock at night every Sunday, right? And that's going to be their quote unquote church, right? Because that's what they're going to be going to. That's what they're going to be doing. But hey, how can we reach the people that are going to the fields on a Sunday? How can we reach people that are in the court on a Wednesday evening, right? For practices and things like that. It comes from staff, it comes from volunteers, it comes from people coming alongside of the ministry. Right. And so again, just that piece of what Matthew talks about is there's a huge harvest, but there's only so many of us workers, right? And the mission of FCA is to lead every coach and athlete, not just some, not just a few, right? Every coach and athlete into a growing relationship with Jesus Christ and his church. And I truly believe that we are going to do that. That's something that I might and will obviously probably not see that to fulfillment in my lifetime. However, it's something that I do believe FCA is on track to do, right? And what we will always continue to do, we will never strive for anything less than reaching every. And so, um, if we're going to reach we need every possible body. We need every possible spirit-filled man and woman to step up and be a leader in their community for FCA. Um, I know I've shared a lot about my story in the past and kind of how I came on with FCA, and I'll just quickly outline it again. But I wanted to, talk a little bit more about some of the things that were going on in my head and conversations that I was having with my family on the back end, right? Things that maybe if you're listening to this episode or if you thought about ministry, maybe you've also had some of these thoughts and concerns. And maybe I can just kind of bring those to light and maybe let you know that you're not the only person, right? You're not weird for having those thoughts or whatever. Hopefully, it's just helpful in some way. So 2020 had a great job. I loved what I was doing with working at a baseball facility, working with teams. Started a mental skills program. I was running tournaments. I was running the place. It was great. I loved it. I loved what I got to do. But it was tough. It was also really time consuming. A lot of hours and days spent away from family and loved ones and friends, and it was tough. It was pretty draining. In 2020, we closed for a few months, as did most of the world. And it was just that time that I was really seeking like what God had for me, what I had in store for my future. And we kind of came out of those couple months of being shut down, went back, and just it was kind of lingering like this is not where I'm supposed to be anymore. So I left that job with really no plan, not sure what was going to happen next. Honestly, I was just continuing to pray, and so I took some construction jobs and warehouse jobs just to make ends meet at the time and kind of reevaluate and figure some of those things out. And so um, that was August of 2020. And between then and November, when I found FCA, I had applied to so many jobs at the time, jobs that I was more than qualified for, that had fit my experience perfectly, that I thought were going to be great fits, and nothing panned out. And that's a whole nother story. But all these different interviews and all these different people that were interested in going through the hiring processes, and then getting told that I wasn't the right fit anymore, getting told that they were going in a different direction, whatever it was. And so I remember just sitting at the edge of my bed with my wife at the time, and we are just sitting there and we're like, I'm almost kind of breaking down, like, man, like, did I make a mistake? I'm not really sure what's going on. And I remember the both of us just sitting there and praying, like, Lord, I've been trying to find what I want to do. Show me what you want me to do instead. And no joke, literally the next day, I get home from work, from the warehouse, come home, get on the computer, go back on Indeed.com looking for jobs. And there it is, FCA. Never heard of the organization before, never knew that it was a ministry, and literally never heard of it. But I saw the job description, I saw what it was, I saw the sports and faith, how they come together. I'm like, all right, this seems like something up my alley I might be interested in. And quite honestly, I was like, at this point, this is probably like my 105th application anyway, so I'll put it in and we'll see what happens. A couple days later, hear from the state director, and then a lot of conversations, a lot of things happened, a lot of long interview process. But by January of 2021, I was offered the position. Then took some time to raise support, get trained up, what it looked like to actually run FCA and get funded for FCA. And then in November of 21, I came on staff with FCA. Um, but that time between November of 2020 and January of 21 were some of the hardest months of trying to figure out where I was supposed to be, figuring out, is this God's calling? Is he calling me to this? Is this his plan? How is this practical? How is this going to work? How am I going to do this? Right? And now let me just be clear. There is a lot that did not really fit the mold for who I was, right? Believer, saved, baptized, believed in Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, without a doubt. But if you had asked me a couple years prior, like, if you had told me that I was going into ministry, I don't, like, my jaw would hit the ground. Like, I would have been speechless because it would have been so far off of who I thought I was, right? Um, Honestly, even just a couple of months prior to that, like, it never would have crossed my mind. And so I really felt like I wasn't qualified to do this, right? Like, this is something that's bigger than me. This is not just your typical 9 to 5 job, a corporate job, whatever it might be. Like, this is something that I have the opportunity to show people who Jesus is, right? And allow that opportunity to save their life. Not that I was saving their life, right? That's Jesus is doing, but giving the opportunity for people to do this and help them understand who he is and how to have a relationship with him. And so I really felt like I wasn't qualified. I didn't know how to do this. And so for that reason, I tried to turn it down once, right? And then um, not really sure financially if it was the right move. And then I tried to say no then. And then there was a third time, I forget exactly what it was. I thought maybe the timing wasn't going to be right or whatever it was. And so I tried to say no. I literally tried to say no to the position 3 times. And every time I went to go tell my hiring director at the time that I was going to bow out, he brought up my concern before I brought it up to him, and there was a solution to it. And so I knew right then and there that the Holy Spirit was working, that God was calling me to it, because I hadn't shared some of those concerns with my director, with the hiring director, and before I even could, they were being addressed in ways that were showing me, like, my concerns were not really concerns. They were tools that God was going to utilize to change my life, and then hopefully show other people that are in the same boat as I was, that it's possible. And now I see that. Right now I can look back and see that God was moving different pieces and moving things out of my way and closing certain doors to, make sure that I was on the path that I needed to be where I am today with FCA. So like I said, I really tried to say no multiple times. Didn't think I was right for ministry. Had no formal training. I didn't go to seminary. I'm not a pastor. None of those things. I'd been involved with our church and small groups and things, but nothing on a huge level. And so I wasn't sure, right? Um, and everything that shouldn't have worked out for me ended up working out, right? Like I said, there was just all those things that I thought were going to be blocks for me were things that pulled me back into the ministry, and God was just showing me, hey, I got your back. I know what you need, and I know you think you're not qualified. I know you think you can't do this, but I'm going to show you that you can. Um, we've talked about it before too. It's a great phrase, right? It's just that God doesn't call the qualified; He qualifies the called, and I think that's so true. I mean, if you love Jesus with all of your heart, you believe in Him as your Lord and Savior, and then you see sports as an opportunity to share the gospel, like, dang near fully qualified to be on staff with FCA, right? Of course, there's a lot of things that come after that, right? Like how do you run the huddles? How do you actually run the ministry? How do you do the ministry? How do you actually do these huddles? What is a huddle? And all those different types of things. But that's later down the line. Those are things that FCA does an incredible job training up our staff on how to do those things. But prior to even doing that, it's all about finding your calling and finding if this is right for you and if FCA is right for you and if you're right for FCA and just honing in with God's calling for your life. And then the rest is easily going to be taken care of. And I can tell you that from firsthand experience. So again, this is something that I never would have imagined that I would have done, right? I wouldn't have even considered it. And maybe you're sitting in your car listening to this right now or at your desk or whatever it is and be like, yeah, like there's no way. Like, well, keep an open mind because if God wants you there, He's going to show you that you need to be there. And so think about those things. Maybe there's certain people in your life that are speaking to you for certain reasons, or there's opportunities that are presenting themselves. Maybe it's just because you turned on this episode, right? And maybe that's a nudge in the right direction. Just things to consider about and pray about. And then since being on staff since November of 21, I mean, man, like my life has changed just by my faith has grown exponentially. My family's faith has grown exponentially. But the things that we've seen here in the Hudson Valley are incredible. I mean, we're seeing what started at 20 kids at our first camp. We just had a Fields of Faith event with 120 people last month. We have people that are reaching out to us to get involved. We have student athletes at middle schools and high schools that are reaching out, wanting to start Bible studies through FCA at their schools and in their communities. Like, what? Like, I think about that now. I'm like, are you serious? Like, how is that possible? It's because we're obedient to it. And I'm not using that to pat myself on the back saying, oh, well, I'm doing this. Like, no, it's not me. Like, there could have been somebody else that stepped into my role and it would be being done because of that person, right? If Vincenzo isn't on staff, if Bob isn't on staff, if Joey isn't on staff, whoever that person is, if they're not there, if they're not doing it, the ministry isn't existing, right? There's no support, there's no resources that are happening, there's no encouragement, there's no empowering of our coaches and athletes to live out their Christian lifestyle on the courts and fields. Um, and so those are ways that I never thought I would see God work, but I am, right? Like we are on public school campuses, we're on college campuses, we have programs with homeschoolers, we have things that are happening in the community, and we're seeing how walls are just being torn down between what people thought they knew about God and these myths and these preconceived notions about who God is because that's what society tells them versus who God actually is because they experience Him in a way that makes sense to them because it happened on a field or it happened on a court, right? And that's the beauty of FCA and that's the power of FCA. Um, so what does this mean? Like, how can you potentially get involved with these things, right? And so hopefully just a little bit of my story, and I'd love to share it just because it's a God story. It's part of a testimony, honestly, of how God worked in my life and where we're at now. And then kind of what he's blessed us with and the success and the growth that we've seen over the last 3.5 years. But how could you get involved, right? Listening to this, right? Because there are full-time roles available, there's part-time roles available, and of course, there's volunteers. Our ministry is volunteer intensive, right? It's heavy on volunteers because again, there's only so many people that are going to be on staff, but we look to train up volunteers. Maybe it's not right for somebody to be on staff. Maybe that's not the right move, right? Maybe they need to be where they're at. Whatever job it is, but they have the capacity to volunteer. They have the capacity to lead a huddle or to help run a program or to help at a camp, whatever it could be, right? And so I'm just going to speak to us here in the Hudson Valley, what we're looking to hire, but this is pretty much dang near everywhere, right? We're looking for directors to, area directors that cover counties and then reps underneath them that will, reach the school districts and the different areas in that county, right? Full time, part time. But then there's even more specialty, more niche positions such as running FCA leagues or club teams, right? Club teams that travel around uh, outdoors ministry, right? Hunting, kayaking, hiking, all those things. Anything that you do outdoorsy, right? Think of anything that you're going to be able to get at a Bass Pro Shop. Put that with an FCA logo, and that's FCA Outdoors. Motorsports, right? We've seen dirt bike camp, right? All these different awesome things that are happening because we see an opportunity in motorsports, action sports. So think X Games, right? Snowboarding, BMX, skateboarding, action sports, all abilities, working with athletes who are um, uh, with disabilities, whether it's physical or cognitive. Homeschool opportunities. There's a lot of homeschool groups that want to get involved, and maybe they can't within their towns or within their schools. So FCA is kind of coming alongside of them to help out in those ways. And then obviously on campus, which is probably our biggest area. You're talking about high school campuses, college campuses, middle school campuses, whatever it might be. So these are all different areas that we're looking to hire and we're looking for staff to be in, right? And so maybe that you have a super strong passion for a specific sport or a specific environment. Like we can bring that, you can bring that to the table, and FCA wants to create a position around the person, not fit you into a box, right? Because we want to let you use your God-given gifts, talents, and abilities to be able to glorify God in what you do, and that's going to come out because you're passionate about what you're being able to do. So I'm a baseball guy. Like if I could start an FCA baseball team, like I would love to do that, right? Maybe you're that person. Maybe it's a different sport. Maybe it's soccer. Maybe it's basketball. Maybe there's an archery league to get going. So just anything that you could think of, like you might be able to fill that role. And so, but really at the end of the day, like what traits matter the most for our staff, right? Do you love Jesus? Do you have a heart for people? And are you willing to put yourself out there and to learn and be trained to do the ministry through the Holy Spirit's guiding? Um, so this is really a pioneering movement for many of us across the Northeast. Now, there's some areas that are a little bit more built up. Maybe they have more staff. They've been established for, a longer period of time. But so many of our areas are still so brand new. They're still in such the beginning stages. I mean, here in the Hudson Valley, we're 3.5 years in. And New York, at least, we're probably one of the younger areas, right? And just in terms of we've only been here for 3.5 years. Some areas have been around for 6, 7 years, 10 years, maybe some other states and things like that. But we're still all really in the pioneering stage of everything that we're doing, right? So we're looking for people that want to get on board with that understand that there's people that need to be reached on the fields and on the courts and want to be part of that and just being obedient to what God's calling us to do and just living that out and seeing the glory that God has for you in those areas in those environments. And we'll put something in the notes too, in the show notes, in the description, just an interest form. If you're maybe interested in coming on staff with FCA, just want to have a conversation. We'd love to do that with you. You can fill it out, even if you're not in my area of the Hudson Valley. Fill it out, and we'll get you connected to whatever staff person is in your area to have that conversation. Again, it's a no commitment conversation. It is what it is. It's a conversation, right? Just for you to maybe get some questions answered, for you to just see what things are available, and just kind of get to know you and for you to get to know us a little bit. So that'll be in the notes down below. And so I'd be happy if you would just fill it out. It's just a few short questions just for us to kind of get some information on you, and then we would give you a call after that. But so now maybe you're thinking this, okay, I'm listening to this story, resonates with me a little bit. I definitely see sports as a vehicle to share the gospel. I want more people to know who Jesus is. Like, now how do we do it, right? Well, how does FCA equip you to succeed in those areas, right? And so you don't have to figure it out alone. FCA has a very rich history, right? Over 70 years of ministry, tons of resources for you, tons of training opportunities, and your local staff as well as your regional staff really truly come around you, especially in those early years and months and days, just come around you and just love on you and support you and see where, they're sharing their experiences, they're helping you through things, you're sharing what's going on, how, where you need more help and all those different types of things. And so there's support raising training, how to even raise funds to come on staff. FCA does an incredible job of that. Like I didn't think I'd be able to do it. I didn't understand how to do it. But I went through some very intense training, as all our staff do. And here I am today, full time, paid on staff, as well as the other 70 people in our region, and a couple thousand people nationally and internationally that are on staff with FCA because it works, right? Like where God guides, God will provide, and it's a real step of faith. A lot of us can't wrap our head around that. Some of us are a little nervous to take that step of faith because finances are something that like we hold on to for dear life a lot of times. But there's people out there that are going to be involved in the ministry, and then the only way they're involved is to support our staff financially, right? Or support programs financially. So those people are there. So we train you up in how to do that, right? That's probably, we could probably do a whole nother podcast episode on just that. Uh, but coaching and mentoring, right? We have people on our staff in the Northeast specifically that just check in with. There's a guy that checks in with all our male staff, right, throughout the month, and a woman that does it for our female staff. So like we care about each other. We want to like coach and mentor each other personally and spiritually, but then also like how do we do these things? How do we get some of the connections at schools? How do we actually start a huddle? How do you run a huddle? How do you do this camp? Right? There's all these things. So you're not starting from scratch. There's all these resources and all these people that, and it's truly a team and a family that are coming around you to then help you implement all of these things. And so you're right now, if you're listening to this, you might be at ground zero, like not no idea how to do this. And I was there. I was there 3.5 years ago, and here we are starting new programs, running camps every year, huddles popping up, every couple months. So those things happen, and so now I'm super confident being able to do that and understanding, finding people's needs, and then where we can fill those gaps. And so you would obviously be able to do that. But what I love too is there's such clear structure and a clear mission to FCA. Like our mission is very specific, and we understand the lane that we're in, right? And so we don't veer off that. And like, yeah, we might collaborate with other people or organizations and do some things with them, but our mission is to lead every coach and athlete. And so that's what we stick with, right? We know sports, we know Jesus, and so we go in that direction. um, and the structure on how to do certain things. Like there's a benefit to having a large organization, right? That's help provide those guardrails. But then at the end of the day, no one knows your area as well as you do, right? And so you're going to be able to find the needs. You're going to know the people in those communities. You're going to be able to, come alongside and say, hey, like this is something this area needs, and this is how we should do it. This is how it's going to get done, and then we can plug that into the FCA formula, if you will, and boom, we're getting ministry started in your area. Right. So it's just there's all these things, and remember, it's not just a job, it's a calling, right? So if you're called to this, like the rest is all just going to fall into place. And I feel like so many people overlook the calling, and they're just like, well, I can't do this. I've never done this. I've never raised support. I've never led a Bible study. Mission ministry in my area. Like, no, people are gonna laugh at me. Like, don't even look at all that stuff yet, because all that stuff is taken care of within the first month of it being on staff with FCA. You're going to understand how to do all of that stuff, and you're going to continue to learn and continue to get better and find different ways to cultivate. But it's that calling piece, right? If you're called to it, the rest doesn't matter, because it's all going to be taken care of. God's going to take care of it, right? So lean into him, right? And that's something that our staff, like, we're so confident in what we do because we know that God has called us to this, right? We know that God has uh, had a plan for us, a specific plan for us, and has aligned us where we're at today. And so, whatever comes our way, like we're okay. Like, sure, we get nervous. Sure, we're not sure how to go about things sometimes, but at the end of the day, like we know we're still supposed to be here. And so that's what I would encourage you to do is like, fine, what is your calling, right? If it's with FCA, amazing. I hope it is. But if it's not, if it's something else that's kingdom minded and kingdom bound, heck, go for it, right? Find your calling, pray about that, seek guidance on like from other people, hear what other people are saying about you, or the opportunities that might come up. Like that's how you find your calling, and just being in personal, deep personal relationship with Jesus Christ, and getting into scripture and being in prayer and surrounding yourself with other believers. Like his calling will reveal itself to you, right? But you just have to be open, and then be willing to be obedient to step into that calling. And I do think there's a place in FCA for everybody. It's not always staff. Sometimes it is a donor. Sometimes it's a board. Sometimes it's a volunteer. It might be a coach, an athlete leader, whatever it might be. And so I hope that you can find an opportunity in FCA to be involved in what we kind of have going on. And so yeah, I want to kind of wrap up here. But if you've ever felt a nudge, right, during this episode, like don't ignore it. Don't ignore it. Maybe this episode was that last little like just kick in the butt to explore it a little bit more. Again, have a conversation with us. Fill out that interest form. There's no harm in that, right? You're either going to feel a little bit more convicted and like, yeah, this is where I'm supposed to be, or you're going to feel like, okay, I had that conversation and now I know that's not it. But have that conversation, right? Don't let you being timid about the situation deter you away from what God might be trying to do in your life. Um, and you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be available. You need to be obedient. You need to be listening to God. Like, you don't have to be perfect. God knows I'm not. I've made a lot of mistakes in this job. We've tried to start things that just completely we fell on our face doing it, but you know what? We got up, we learned from it, and we improved for the next time. And you will find that all across our region that we have to be very unique in the strategies and the techniques and the different opportunities and programs that we run. It's not about being perfect. It's about being available and it's about being obedient. So again, find that interest form in our description. Reach out for a conversation. Again, the harvest is ready. It's just waiting for you. There's people in your community, right, in your backyard, in your neighborhoods, in your school districts, that need to hear the life saving message of the gospel, and you might just be that person that is able to bring it to them in an environment and in a setting that is so unique and so comfortable to them, such as sport, right? They're a basketball player, and now you're able to, drain in hoops with them and talking about Jesus, right? And maybe it's lacrosse, right? You're scoring goals and saving souls, right? I don't know. Maybe we should tagline that, but it just came out of nowhere. Anyway, sorry, but just be thinking about that, right? That harvest is waiting for you. And so, if something in this episode stirred your heart, don't ignore it, right? Maybe God is calling you to take a step into ministry, into leadership, into something greater than yourself. And selfishly, I hope that is with FCA because I see the important stuff that we're doing. I see the need for what we're doing. I see the kingdom impact that is happening and the success and growth that we're heading towards. And whether that's full time, part time, or as a volunteer, like I said, there's a place for you in this ministry to serve and be alongside of us in one capacity or the other. The harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. It's not just a verse, it's real. Jesus said this, thousands of years ago, and it's still relevant and real and a reality for us today, right here, right now. So head to that interest form in the show notes. Reach out to me directly. Just start praying about what God might be calling you to do. Would love to get you connected with, if it's not me, whoever the other person, the director or staff person in your area is, to just explore some of those things. Or maybe you have an idea for how we can get involved in your community. Like, let's have those conversations. So many of the amazing things that the ministry produces come from listening to people in our community and what they need, and then being able to see how we can fill that gap. So don't wait. The mission can't wait, and God's not going to wait. This is an unstoppable force that God has, and it's going to continue one way or the other. And we just hope that you're along for the ride, and we hope that you're being obedient to what God might be having you do. So I hope this was informational. I hope this was a little inspirational in a sense too. And man, I love on a practical side, I love my job. I love what I get to do. I love the faith component of it, but I truly just love my job. Like, I get to do something that I enjoy every single day. Like, it's not a job, it's become part of my life. And not in a bad way, not in like a toxic work environment way that it's taken over, but like I get to live my life and my career in one, right? Aligned with Jesus. And then I get to show that to other people. Are you kidding me? Like, and I get to wear sweatpants sometimes. Like, that's pretty cool, right? I don't have to dress up in a suit and tie every day. Sorry, Amber, if you're listening to that. That's our state director, but she knows it. We wear sweatpants and t-shirts when we go to work. That's awesome. That might be the tagline right there for our new talent advancement. I'll have to get back with Steve Hines and talk to him about that. But anyway, again, I hope this was informative, inspirational for some of you. Maybe it's just that one little extra push that you needed to just step into what God has for you. And so we'd love to have that conversation. We'd love to journey along with you and hopefully be your teammate one day soon. So thank you guys for listening. I'll see you again.